could you give us your opening statement?
You're ready.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said, Bob.
Yeah, could you give us the opening statement for the governor's order?
Yes.
Recording in progress.
Yes, of course. Okay. Is there an echo? No. Okay, that's better. So tonight's meeting is being convened in a virtual format in accordance with the new amendments to the New York State Open Meetings Law, which allow for virtual conferences such as this to be convened in the same manner as the virtual conferences were convened under the New York State governor's executive orders during the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll call the
Mr.
meeting
Chairman,
to order.
if I may,
Sure.
if I may just remind everybody, if you're not speaking, to please put your microphone on mute so that we don't have any echoing or disruption to people who are talking. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll call the meeting to order, and our first matter is a public hearing. This is Reichman, 1267 Hardscrabble Road. This is an application for a site development plan approval, wetlands permit, tree permit for an addition with an addition for an indoor spa. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there anything that that the applicant wants to bring to the forefront and discuss any changes at all? If not, we'll go straight to public and board comments and staff comments, if there are any.
No changes.
Okay, very good. Okay, are there any questions, comments from board members or staff members on this application?
Well,
Nope.
when we get to the resolution, I have a few, but not.
Okay. Okay.
Chairman Kirkwood, just for the benefit of the public, for the public hearing, since we're just opening a public hearing on the matter tonight, I'm wondering if the applicant or one of the town's consultants can give just a very brief couple sentence summary of what the application is, just in case there's folks out there in viewer land that are not familiar with what's being proposed.
Okay, yep. Thank you, Jennifer. Good idea.
I'm happy to give that summary if you'd like.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Sabrina.
Okay, the application that is subject to the public hearing this evening is for a site development plan approval, a wetlands permit, and a tree removal permit for an addition to an existing home that was constructed prior to the town's zoning code. The addition is for an indoor spa. The property itself is very constricted with a wetland and associated wetland buffers, and it's a very tight property given the location of the house, the driveway, the existing septic system, and the drinking water well in relation to the topography, the depth to bedrock, and the wetland buffer.
There we have it. Thank you. Do we have any members of the public interested in any questions or comments?
If
Any-
anybody's interested, please raise your digital hand. I don't see anybody raising their hand at this point.
I have a question for Sabrina.
Okay,
Sabrina, well, actually, for Jacqueline. Jacqueline, was the whole house as it exists now built in 1937?
Well, there were additions.
Yes, the house was, yes.
Okay, all right. So there have been no additions to it from 1937.
No,
That's
there
right.
was one addition.
There was one what?
There was one room built since then.
Ah, okay. So it's mostly 1937.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? And no digital hands. Is there a motion therefore to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have the resolution before us. And I think just to bring a sense of calm to the applicant. We had some questions on the resolution amongst the board members, but it will not have, I don't believe, any impact whatsoever on the application, what you're proposing to do. But from my perspective, this was a very difficult wetland permit because of the dimensions that were involved and the proximity to the wetland. So you've heard us a couple of times talk about making sure that we distinguish this unique property and this unique application from what we customarily see and the actions that we often take on. Well, it's every property is unique, but there are some very distinguishing factors here, and very positive ones that you and your consultants have put together that enable us, I think, to move forward. So Sabrina, I think was there going to be a red line? Is there a red line for some of these changes that I had proposed?
All of the changes you have proposed were reviewed and reviewed by myself and council. I'm not sure the copy of the resolution that was recirculated late today, I am not sure was redlined.
Okay, I don't think I received it. Okay,
It was not. So we can summarize those changes if you would like.
sure, that would be great. Great, and hopefully you put them in proper English too, which will be great.
Yeah, Jen, do you happen to have a red line with you? You're on
Oh, you're
mute.
muted. You're on mute.
If you give me a minute or two, I can pull it up. I don't have it currently up on my screen.
Yeah, hang on, I can try and grab it as well.
Okay, I have a red line up. Beat you to it, Sabrina.
Okay. Thanks, Jen.
Sure. All right. So the changes that were made at the request of the planning board members since the resolution was circulated last week include the following. On the first page in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th whereas clause, it now reads that the application for a site development plan approval includes an extraordinary request. So extraordinary was added for planning board approval of a wetland permit pursuant to chapter 137 of the town code. And this was now added for what normally would be considered a significant incursion within the 100-foot wetland setback buffer. Moving on to the next change.
Is it really extraordinary or is it unique?
Well, I think the request is extraordinary. The property is unique in terms of conditions there.
All right. Well, I think the word unique would be better. On the 1, 2, 3, 4th whereas, since we passed that, the last sentence says that almost wholly within the 50-foot rear yard setback, and I think it's totally within the town's regulated 100-foot wetland buffer. Otherwise, it's a little confusing to me.
We can add the word totally prior to the, and that's
And totally within the town's regulated.
Yep.
If it's true, I mean, it may be mainly or very much so or what, but I think it's totally.
it's totally.
Okay.
All right, the next change is on page 3. Does anyone have any other changes before page 3?
Yeah, what about let me see, do I have any other? Do we mention the rain garden anywhere?
Yes.
Is the rain garden?
The answer is no.
Pardon me?
No, it is not mentioned specifically.
Okay, so the rain garden is to function in consort with the emptying of the pool water. Is that, do I have that correct?
No,
No.
it is not.
Okay, the rain garden is then what purpose?
Part of the stormwater drainage. It's voluntary. It's not required.
Okay,
Because we-
I think that's true. But it would be good to highlight it at some point as again, it's kind of a special aspect of it, which to me was one of the reasons why when we did this. So I know it wasn't required, but I think it and it isn't required also for a lot of other things that are in here. So I think it's a facet, a feature, if you would, that makes the project more unique.
So Dick, there's a list of changes similar to that that we have listed on page 3, and we can add the rain garden to that list.
Excellent.
Which makes sense there.
good.
All right, so-
I have one correction, which is on the 4th clause, whereas clause at the end, there's no well. It is on municipal water.
Which page is that? Page,
We're on page 3,
yes, was it earlier though? Did we miss it earlier?
4th clause. At the end of the sentence, first sentence.
We'll make sure that all references to wells are struck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next change is on page 3, and it's the whereas clause on my top of the page. Hopefully that's consistent with your top of the page. And it says, it was revised to say, whereas the planning board exhaustively considered the alternatives presented by the applicant, as well as other potential solutions. Then we move on to the next whereas clause, which says, whereas the planning board and applicant considered the substantial constraints that could not be avoided with reasonable alternative proposals, with such constraints including site limitations, zoning requirements, potential impacts to surrounding neighbors, the location of the existing home in relation to roadways, setbacks, rock outcrops, the layout of the existing house, the location of the current septic system, and limited alternatives for expansion of the septic system. And whereas the existing undeveloped mature woods, both encompassing the west of the stream and as located east of the stream, represented a contributing factor of consideration for approval of this permit, since this area is proposed to remain in its current natural state. The next whereas clause was also revised to say, whereas the unique nature of the layout of the existing house, septic system, and it says well, but we'll strike reference to well, situated on a corner lot with a wetland and associated wetland buffer, combined with the applicant's proposed mitigation plan to enhance the wetland buffer, were significant factors in the planning board's decision herein, along with the following measures agreed to by the applicant. 1, a minimum of a 50-foot separation from the edge of the wetland to the proposed addition. 2, the lawn area between the house and the wetland shall remain untreated with fertilizer and pesticides. 4, mowing within the wetland shall be restricted to the area designated in the wetland mitigation plan, and that mowing shall be limited to once per year in early spring. And the part of the number 4, the part of the property to the west of the stream, which is in a natural and untouched conditions, shall remain as such. And Dick, we can add a reference here, another bullet point, to indicate that the rain garden was also a measure which was agreed to by the applicant and was a contributing factor to the planning board's decision.
Yeah, and just to make that maybe a little bit better, Jacqueline, the property is pretty much set almost half wetland to the, towards the road, and then dry land the other half. Is that correct? It's a big wetland across the creek and or natural area. Is it about half of your property?
2/3. The wetland is 2/3, maybe a little bit more.
So
Sorry,
2/3,
The
Alexander.
wetland area is 2/3 of the property.
The
okay,
wetland is 2/3?
Yep.
Is Alexandra, it's 2/3 of the subject property, but how large is it across the roadway?
No, not across the
Probably
roadway,
that
on,
even, maybe
on
a
the
bit
property.
larger.
On the property, 2/3.
Yeah.
Okay, that's excellent. We should put that in because that makes it more unique.
Yep.
Because some people might come and say, well, I have a wetland on the other side, I'll take care of it. But this is a huge piece of the land.
Yeah, huge percentage. Very, very considerable.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something quickly?
Sure, Bob.
In my experience with stormwater, and I realize it doesn't need it based on code, but it needs it for other reasons, obviously. We've done a few rain gardens in my experience in the last 10 years in town. And what happens is sometimes is when people sell the property, people don't know what it is. They look at it, it's just a depression in the ground. And there's 2 or 3 instances where we went out and did a follow-up inspection and they filled it in. Because the people, the homeowners, when they sell it, don't know what the heck it is. The landscapers come in and fill it. I mean, I would recommend if it was a stormwater application, but it's not, I'd recommend to the board and Dennis that, maybe you guys might want to get a declaration so at least it goes with the land and people are somewhat aware of this importance of this rain garden in this particular case.
Okay, we can do that for the rain garden and also the wetland across the creek.
As a recommendation, I defer to the planning board on that.
If I may suggest some language, actually, but prior to moving on to that, let me suggest some language on page 1 in the 3rd whereas clause, which addresses the 2/3 wetland. The subject lot is diagonally bisected by a stream and riparian wetlands. And in fact, wetland and wetland buffer comprise 2/3 of the subject property.
Does bisected, doesn't that typically mean it's 50-50?
It means it crosses it. It's,
Well,
It
I think we should change that to say that it's bisected by a stream and riparian wetlands that constitute 2/3 of the property. Good catch.
There's another word you can use. I heard an attorney say it years ago, bifurcated.
I don't know, when bi means 2. So when you do bi, I always have the sense it's 50-50.
Okay.
But hey, it's English and it gets changed to, the thoughts of the person speaking.
okay.
I think it's really good to have the 2/3 in there. That's very, very, very helpful. Thank you. Jennifer, did we finish? We talked about the rain garden. Bob, your point was that we should make a little bit more of a note of it so that it follows in the future.
I have another feature. It's not as big as the 2/3, that's for sure.
Sorry, 1 second, Dick. Can we just go back to the rain garden and your comment about the declaration? So there's a couple different ways that can be indicated for future residents. It could be indicated as a feature on the site plan that is required to be maintained, or it could be maintained as a declaration that's recorded against the property, so that when somebody is looking to purchase the property, they'll see in the title report that there's this restriction on the property that they need to maintain this rain garden in a certain way. So
I like the declaration. That's a good word. Is everybody okay with that?
Well, the declaration is a little bit more onerous for an applicant, but I think it is more effective in terms of giving notice to future owners. So we've been leaning toward declarations for the purpose of notice. I don't know what's involved with the declaration, and I'm sure we have forms on it that can help the applicant, but to get it through. Jennifer, can you speak to that? Is it onerous or relatively easy with the forms that we have available?
Yeah, I mean, we have rough forms. Typically, it's a document that's drafted by the applicant's professional, either whether it's the engineer or the attorney, submitted to the town for review. Once it's deemed acceptable by the town, then it gets recorded in the county clerk's office, right, so that it's filed against the property.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Tom, do you have a thought on that? I think Dick and I are probably leaning toward the declaration. I'm watching, I think Kanan's trying to get on, but I don't see her here yet.
I think that sounds prudent. Sounds good to me.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, sorry, Dick, I interrupted you. You were going to move on to something else.
Ma'am, you're always welcome to interrupt me. All right, so the last little one is, somehow I want to say that, the slope that is there, from the plateau where the house is built down to the stream and the wetland, that's a noticeable drop, which to me indicates that most of the lawn area on the house side of the stream is not going to be flooded, and therefore wouldn't even be an interim or intermittent kind of activity. But I'm not sure what the history is, whether when you get a heavy rain, does the water level pop up a foot, or does it pop up 2? But I don't think it pops up all the way to the house or even halfway to the house.
No,
That's
the
what-
only in the biggest like torrential
Hurricane.
hurricane level, it might come out like maybe 6 inches from the stream. That's it.
How much?
6 inches from the stream.
Okay, so this is another, I think, feature that's unique in that normally when you have a wetland and a wetland buffer, the buffer is, very, very flat also. It only has maybe 4 or 5 degrees growth up to a higher plateau. And right here you have, I'm not sure what the slope is, whether I think somebody said it was 10%. That's a noticeable drop in the location. I don't quite know how to word that. But I think it could be included, but I'd like the 2/3 much better.
Well, we can indicate that the property on the side where the home is certainly not, doesn't function as a flood barrier or a flood detention area. If anything, it's on the other side, and then the stream just acts as a conveyance, even during the highest and biggest of storms. So that's a lot of words. It's way too many words, but I mean, something along the lines that it's not a.
Well, I would say, how about this? Is
Mhm.
It's well, it's.
How about it is elevated?
Well, so it's got limited flood function, flood capacity holding function.
Or maybe
It's
due to the steep slope, the water drains very quickly. Therefore, the flooding is very limited.
Yeah.
Right, so the point being that it's up gradient from the wetland. And the area in the and the area
Significant up gradient. Excellent.
and the area between the actual wetland and the proposed addition doesn't serve to function as a flood storage area.
Yes,
Got it.
thank you. That's great. All right. So I think this makes it better. So
those bullet points that we listed, we will add the rain garden, we'll add this point about the location of the addition being up gradient, significantly up gradient, and not serving as a flood storage area. And there's the last change that was made to the resolution is condition number 11, where it just states that notes shall be added to the site development plan to indicate that the lawn area between the house and the wetland shall not be treated with fertilizer and pesticides. Mowing within the wetland is restricted to the area designated in the mitigation plan, and it only occurs once a year in the early spring. And part of the property to the west of the stream, which is natural and untouched condition, shall remain as such. So those are notes that would be added to the site plan.
Okay.
And that was the last change from the resolution.
Okay. We did not discuss, and perhaps it was appropriate that we did not discuss anything about clearing and grading limit lines. I would assume that would be the same as the wetland lines in this case. Someone weigh in on that. And then the other issue was, I noted very frequently, especially when the ERB is involved, that this kind of work on the ground is very often limited to hand equipment and not big excavators. I don't want to place a burden on the applicant. I don't know what the plan is. Perhaps the architect can speak to that. If that is we normally, especially in this kind of case where we're so close to the actual wetland, that would normally be a condition that the ERB would impose.
I can't promise. I don't know. We haven't spoken to the contractor, so I suppose their peers for the concrete. Well, I don't know if I can commit to just hand digging.
Well, often we do the piers, but maybe we can just put wording in there to the greatest extent possible, reasonably possible. The applicant will try to perform the construction with hand tools and hand equipment without large pieces of equipment. Again, hopefully we can do it that way, but at the same time, not tying your hands so that you can't get this work done.
Okay.
And clearing grading limit lines, not necessary in this case, Bob, Sabrina, because of the wetland issue.
I would agree. I mean, the wetlands does delineate where the most extent could be with clearing,
Right.
so there's no sense having the duplicative name to that one line.
Good, okay, makes sense. Okay. Anyone else, any changes, thoughts? If not, as amended, to be amended, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion's carried and we're all set. The last piece of business on this is, if Dick and Tom, you agree, I think it would be fair to send the applicant off with a letter of support to the ZBA and indicate that this has already been looked at pretty exhaustively and that we think this is the best possible solution. And hopefully the ZBA will approve it as is. It's a condition, of course, of our approval that the ZBA issues a variance consistent with the approved plan, but perhaps a note would help the effort.
That would be great. Thank you.
If
We're
the-
up on the 20th.
If the board wishes for us to draft something, can we request that it be signed, approved and signed by the chairman? Because we don't have another meeting until the end of the month beyond that.
Right.
Okay by me.
Yeah, if we need a motion, I so move.
Okay, second, Dick,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay,
Aye.
good. I think that'll help the effort. Maybe streamline a little bit. Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Yep.
Same to you, folks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. We move down to our next item. This is a resolution for Fisher 1 Meadow Hill Way, application for a site development plan approval, tree removal permit, application for stormwater management and erosion and sedimentation control, 1 Meadow Hill Way. So we closed the public hearing on this. We just have the resolution before us. I had asked that one question, I think, on the resolution in terms of, I know it's on the plan. Is it necessary or appropriate to put it in the resolution with regard to the fire pit, the gas burning, use of gas for the fire pit? If not, if Bob, Sabrina, and everyone thinks it's unnecessary, that's fine by me.
Is that something Tom will have to enforce?
Well, yeah, I think that would, yes, that's the point. So I don't know if the sketches are not good.
And it should, if it's something Tom has to look at, if someone calls in about it, I'd recommend it be put in the resolution, I would think.
We put it in the resolution.
Oh, okay.
We
Okay.
edited the
good.
resolution to specifically call out that the fire pit shall not be a wood burning fire pit, but should be gas or electric.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
we also requested that it be noted on the plan.
Okay,
It's in both places.
terrific. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any issues, questions? Brad, are you okay with this? Any problems?
Yeah, I have a couple of, we on the resolution or what?
Yes, that's all we have before us is the resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so on page 2. I'm confused with the 4th whereas. Where it says the application for the site development plan indicates the town water and sewer services will be conveyed to the property via Meadow Hill Way. I thought the sewer was through an easement in the middle of the property. So I don't understand how the sewer is going to be via Meadow Hill Way when it's going across other properties. I'm not sure
Yeah.
about the town water.
The town water comes in off of Meadow Hill Way. I know that for a fact, and I think this ties into one of the manholes to the west.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I don't think that's correct.
okay. If someone could correct that, that would be nifty.
Bob, perhaps you can provide language to Felicia so she can correct that.
I will do.
Thank
You don't
you.
need that right now, do you?
No,
If she
I
can
don't-
get it to her tomorrow, that would be helpful.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, and any comments up to page 5? Because I have one.
Nope.
I would like to have, and we can vote on this or however we want to do it, but I would like to have the, under 5B, I want the amended clearing and grading limit line to be permanently labeled with, some pieces of metal that you could mow over it if you had to. But, it's, let's say, I forget what the spacing is, Bob Cioli, that we have on these things, 20 feet or,
A lot of times the environmental coordinator comes up with that, but I know Steve Coleman used to use, I think, based on whatever the field conditions are, whether it's a tangent, whether there's a lot of curves. It's something I think Dennis might have to look at and maybe put a better
Okay.
tweak on when we get the plans back in, and we can discuss that when we review the plans prior to the chairman signing them.
all right, but that, that way future landowners would know, okay, this is, I can't go farther than this or do weird things on the other side. All right, and page 6, I have one comment. That's on the second bullet. The third line speaks to limited to species of herbs, and I have called on some experts, and they believe that second, the word after and or is shrubs. I have it on good knowledge that that is what it is. Particularly since several of the letters are the same. But I don't know what a form is otherwise.
It is an herb other than grass. That's the definition of a forb.
Pardon me? Forbes has a meaning?
Yes.
It is defined as an herb other
No,
than
my
grass.
expert then has to be chastened.
You know how much fun I am at parties, Mr. Brownell? Yeah, this is the stuff we talk about.
All right. If you think it's right, we'll leave it.
You know, it's.
But I don't have that
basically
word
to-
in my dictionary.
It's to emphasize, because I know you had mentioned it last meeting, to keep the woody.
can hardly hear
plantings
you,
away
Dennis.
from the area. Sure, it's just meant to keep the woody plantings away. That's to emphasize that from that area.
Okay. On page 7, on 17B, we would have to, do whatever we do on the earlier one where we demarcate and permanently label. And other than that, I don't have any comments.
Okay. Tom, any questions, comments?
Yeah, my only comment is that just looking at this up in the OED, Forb has a Greek root, Forb. And just to agree with Dennis, the expert in these things, any herbaceous plant other than grass.
Ah, very good, Tom.
That's the
All
word
right.
of the day.
I have to get a larger dictionary, I guess.
The
Yes.
word of the day.
Brad, did you have any questions, comments on the resolution?
Yeah, but this is gonna sound really boring after this conversation now about Forbes. I think Alan on page 6 had 2 clarifying questions on stormwater. Otherwise, we're good. So Alan, if you wanna pop on video and I guess ask your questions on numbers 9 and 10. Alan?
I'm here.
Hiding behind the Forbes.
That's right. I believe the comment I had was on number 11
Oh, 11.
on top of page 7. Where it was providing 1 depot and 1 percolation test. As opposed to 2 depot tests.
I think on my sheet, Alan, that's on page 6, number 9.
Okay. Well, the one I just printed is on.
Oh, that
is
was that the
number-
amend, there was an amended one that Felicia sent around. I don't know. if
That's
it's
the one I'm looking at.
Yeah, but I think that might have changed your numbering.
At any rate, I do believe it's supposed to be 1 deep hole and 1 percolation test. I really don't want to have to go out and do another soil test out there since we've already done them.
I agree with Alan. I missed that. That should be 101.
And the one before that, about the revised stormwater report, I did forward you an email at one time, and I think I had the impervious surfaces within drainage area XDA1, which is 9,777 square feet. So I prefer that, that's the number I had. It actually refers to Meadow Hill Way. That's the amount of impervious surfaces within it. And everything else that was part of the former development, I took as lawn in doing the analysis in the last report. So I think it's correct in the report.
I don't
mean,
know.
it's a minor clarification, but
I got a bigger number. I'd rather leave the bigger number and you and I decide what it really is. So I think it's fine. I'd rather keep a more conservative number in there.
I think you actually said we're reducing it down to 5,266 square feet. Fine, I'll make it 5,266, whatever number it is.
Okay.
Fine. Then the number you say here is from 13,591 square feet to 5,266 square feet. So I will use that number 5,266.
That's fine.
We have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Just want for clarification. The rest of it's fine.
Thanks, Alan. Okay. Any other questions, comments from board members, staff, anyone? If not, is there a motion to approve the resolution as amended?
Don't move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's 4 of us, all carried and the resolution's approved. So we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, we move now to our next matter. This is an informal appearance before the board. This is 106 Tripp Street LLC, 106 Tripp Street. This is an application for a preliminary subdivision plat approval, site development plan approval, application for a stormwater management and erosion and sedimentation control, a wetland permit, and a tree removal permit. This is our first look at this.
Good evening, Chairman. Whitney Singleton from Singleton, Davis and Singleton on behalf of the applicant. While hopefully our engineer, Rick Bolander, can get up some drawings for us to take a look at. I'm also joined here by Baldo Federo and Brian Weir, who are representatives of the property owner. Okay. The introduction made it sound like a lot. I think it's probably a whole lot less than that. We're essentially seeking a lot line change to take the 773 Ormoc Road parcel, which is currently 96 vacant acres, and reduce that to 87 acres, continuing to be vacant, and enlarge 106 Tripp Street, which is currently 20 acres with a single family home and accessory structures, up to 29 acres. And the reason for that, the primary reason for that lot line change is, as Bob Cioli pointed out in an earlier memo before it got to your board, that you can't have an accessory structure without a primary structure. And since our clients tore down the 55,000 square foot building on the property, there's no longer a primary structure on the 96 acre property. So we are proposing to shift the lot line to the south so that we can incorporate within the existing improved 20 acre lot to be 29 acres. Not only the single family home, but the existing barn, the paddocks, and the subject of this application, an indoor riding ring, which would be limited solely for the family members. It is not of commercial use at all. It's for the property owner's children. And so the entire 100+ acres is zoned R2A, and it has only one current residence on it. And it has the improvements that you can see there, minus the green box, which is the indoor riding ring. And we're trying to locate that after a lot of work with your staff. We're trying to locate that in a portion of the site where it has utility in that it's in close proximity to the barn so that the horses can get there rather easily, while still trying to honor the wetlands buffers and to honor the setbacks, obviously, and not impinge any steep slopes. As your planner has pointed out, all aspects of our proposed application are zoning compliant. We are not impacting any wetlands buffers, nor are we impacting any steep slopes. However, there is an impact here that, you know, I think will be the center point of your board's focus, and that is the best way to orient the building and the best location to site the building to minimize the visual impacts. It is currently set back at approximately twice the distance. Currently, the portion of the land in question is a side yard setback at 45 feet. By virtue of the lot line change, it will become a rear yard setback, having a 60-foot setback. And we are proposing, Rick, help me out here, over 105 feet.
Yes, Rick Bolander with JMC. I'm the civil engineer on the project. Good evening, everybody. Yes, we are proposing right now as a primary location for our indoor horse ring. We are proposing a 105-foot setback, which is 55 feet more than the 60-foot required rear yard setback.
And as you can see from the plan that Rick currently put up, what we're dealing with is, while it is not a steep slope or steep slopes, there is a gentle slope here. And we're trying to put this in a location which would mitigate visual impacts for the adjoining property owners. And the further we go down the hill, the closer we get to their properties. However, the further we go down the hill, the easier it is to hide the bulk of the structure here by the existing six-foot fence that goes along the property line, and putting it in a less prominent location, which can be landscaped and blocked from view of the neighbors. As we go up the hill, as we go up the hill in elevation, it becomes more prominent and it becomes more difficult to screen for the adjoining property owners. So we're trying to find, for lack of a better term, the sweet spot that works for everybody. And we've tried to do so. If we go further down the hill, we have some water table issues, and we're trying to find the right location that balances all the competing factors. And all of our locations are, meeting the wetland setbacks or substantially meeting them. And I think that what your board will find is that a site visit will serve you very well to give you a better sense of the factors that weigh into this, and proximity to the barn, proximity to the neighbors, and visual impacts. And as part of this application, we will have to take down 4 trees. So that's part of our application as well. And we have comment letters from your staff, and we will be addressing all of those items. But from the outset, we'd like to just kind of walk through the project with you. And I'm going to turn it over to Rick, unless you have any preliminary questions. I'm going to turn it over to Rick to kind of walk through what's being proposed here.
Yeah, can you put up the very first drawing? I have a question about, I'm confused by the current property lines and the proposed lines.
You got it.
Perfect.
Right there. Okay.
And that was the one I told you to start with, Rick.
Yes. I apologize. I started with the existing one without the new proposed lot line. I apologize about that. So what we're looking at here, this is the 773 Armonk Road property that I'm kind of following with my cursor, and the 106 Trip Street property here. Very faintly, you can see I'm going to zoom in on that just so you can see that a little bit better.
I'd like to zoom in, if you would, on Trip Street.
Sure.
I want to understand what you're proposing here, so I better understand what's going on in what's there.
Sure.
Obviously, we'll see it on a site visit, but I just wanted to get a feel of what's going on here.
And unfortunately, on the site visit, you won't be able to see the property lines, which is I'll try and delineate as best I can here. So I'm following along with the former 106 Trip Street property line adjacent to the 773, and then here is the current property line. Following my cursor.
So before you go back, now I'm confused. Is this an out parcel where you have the existing driveway and you have existing 106 Trip Street, Trip Residence primary building marked, but it looks like an out parcel.
So right now it's not in. Yeah. So this, are you referring to this parcel right here?
Yes.
That is an out parcel.
Which is also owned by our clients.
Yes.
And to the south of that out parcel, that's part of 773?
This area right here?
Yeah.
That currently is part of the 106 Trip Street property.
That's part of 106. It wraps around the out parcel.
So I'm just going to follow. That's the current property line. That's currently the line dividing 773 and 106 Strip Street right there.
Now to the south of the drive that used to go to the old mansion off of Trip Street.
Yep.
What's going on there where we have that 60-foot rear yard setback lines? What is that?
So to maintain that access to the 773, we followed that driveway with our property line, so that that driveway would remain on the 773 Armonk Road property.
Well, I have a concern with that. When you start lapping in another parcel behind another one. So I think you need to reconsider that. We don't like flag lots, and this starts to look like a flag lot to the extent that this now is going behind another parcel.
Okay. We will definitely look at that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may raise an issue about that as well. One of my comments was that because there's an existing, what looks like an accessory structure, the garage, with the, I don't know if it's a house, since the primary building was taken down, that's a secondary building. So I've asked the building inspector to interpret this to make sure we're not putting a secondary use on a property without a primary use. So that's in for review with him. He unfortunately didn't have a chance to look at it and has been out this week. But I hope to get that issue resolved before you come back. But just to give you a heads up on that.
Sabrina, maybe we can address it. Which building are you talking about?
If the lot line change is drawn as you're proposing it, there's the garage across the street.
Is
I
it
think it's-
right there on Trip Street?
Yeah, the existing gatehouse.
Is this,
Yeah, your board already approved its demolition. It's gone.
So this is gone. So there'll be new
Correct.
structures on the,
There will be structures, but there will be no buildings. There's a water tower.
yeah, other than, yeah, correct. There'll be no, okay, thank you.
I had questions about the proposed locations for the ring,
Yes.
where you showed the 2 or 3 different locations.
I'll get to that drawing right now.
So the question is, which one are you looking at more closely? And what's the drop, the ones where you're going along the drop of the property to sort of hide it, which sounds good to me, but I'm just trying to figure out what is the drop in from one, the highest contour down to the lowest, and how are you dealing with it on the interior?
So how we dealt with that, because obviously there was many factors that went into this, between the soils testing for our stormwater and where we hit groundwater. And just we wanted to, the ultimate goal was also a balanced site where there was we wouldn't need to import material or export material. So no truck traffic. And right now, as we have it laid out, there would be no export or import material. It's a balanced site, which was one of the comments. So there would be no truck traffic. So essentially what you were asking, I apologize about kind of going a roundabout way, but the difference would be from one end to another of the existing grade, about a 20-foot grade difference. And there was, just to piggyback on what Whitney was talking about, these are just a few examples of the areas we looked at. We looked at this in extreme depth, and as I said, there was many factors that went into this: stormwater, steep slopes, wetlands, and obviously visual impacts. This seems to be the area that we're showing shaded right now, seemed to me and the team to be the best location to locate this horse barn. And this is a very big site, a 96-acre site, and the 106 Trip Street site is 20 acres. So I know what you're thinking. There's got to be another place to locate this. But what we will see on the site walk is that this seems to be the most feasible location because of proximity to the existing barn, because of grading, because of stormwater, steep slopes, and wetlands.
Rick, can I ask you to go back to the plan of 106 Trip Street, that property?
Yes.
Please. Zoom in there.
Yes, sir.
Right about there. That's perfect. Thank you. So I'm looking at this in the proposal in the context of the entire property, and I'm sure you did too, right? That's what you do. And quite frankly, I understand the argument so far that you've given with respect to slopes, and I tend to think that in that meadow over there, any orientation of this large footprint is actually probably going to end up in a balance of cut and fill, because the slope is so uniform, right? So it really doesn't matter. The orientation doesn't matter. Location really doesn't matter. In the end, you're going to be able to essentially come close to balancing the cut and fill. So I don't see that as a determining criteria for those alternatives that you've shown. What I do see as a determining criteria is, it looks to me that with respect to the abutters, this is the worst location. And it's a very big building. It's 80 feet by 200 feet by, I think the roof line is 30 feet above the finished floor, but it's more than 30 feet above actually the low point of the site. I mean, you're really looking up to a low point of the site on that side. You're looking up and up to the top of the ridge line of this building. So the question I'd like to ask is, if we focused on, there's not a whole lot of information in this drawing about the topography and existing, no, zoom back in,
Okay.
Don't leave me here.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. On the 106 Trip Street property, there's, in terms of trees, the tree canopy, wetland buffer dimensions, topography. I mean, I'm wondering whether this building is entirely on the wrong piece of property. It seems to me it ought to be closer to on the other side, because you have in that location on the 106 Trip Street property, you have houses that are farther away from their property line, and you have the ability to put this. I don't know what what's east, west, north, south, but let's just say down closer to, for instance, where the 106 Trip Street house is. So could you go through your thinking on, did you look at putting this facility over there?
Absolutely. And I just to be sure, are you referring to this area right here?
Yeah, generally in there. Thank you.
So when you look, and we'll see this on our, hopefully on the site visit too. And I'll try and bring up a drawing that shows the grading in this area. So coming back from the residence and heading, so this would be heading west. So north, if you're looking at this drawing, north is left to right, and west is from bottom to top. So you have steep slopes, not directly behind the residence, but it gets down over 15%. And then it flattens out in this area right here. And then it continues over 15% down to these residences. And obviously we looked at this area, but taking away, really the only lawn area for the 106 Trip Street residence wasn't ideal in our minds, as this is really the yard area for the kids and for the family. It just didn't seem ideal for our proposed location for the barn.
And that's essentially the sum of your analysis for that part of the property. It just is not desirable.
And also just for feasibility of getting the horses from the existing horse barn, which is located right here, to this area. There is existing, as I said, existing steep slopes over 15%. And that's really what these areas are sloped at, is about 11%. And that's really the steepest that we would want horses, walking on and whatnot. So that was another factor of why we wanted to avoid this area, is just getting the horses to this area.
Well, you don't want a horse. You don't want a horse in a pasture that has a steep slope, but there's no problem in a horse walking back and forth on a steep slope. At a 15% steep slope, that's no difficult matter for a horse to manage.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm not a horseman, but I know
I'm not either.
I know a little bit about this because my father was.
Yep.
Mr. Curley? Mr. Curley, with regard to your question, it's certainly something we explored. And while I won't say that the entire area over there is filled with steep slopes, if you look at a steep slopes map for the area, the predominant portion of that area is filled with both steep slopes and very steep slopes.
I think it would really help to have, as Tom said, just be able to see contours with all this context in place. I think the problem is the other one has the contours, but we are not seeing existing properties.
And I will work to, I'll get that drawing for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karen.
No, I that would just help figure out what, if at all, that was the location. Even here where you have it currently showing up, there's no contour information, so it's hard to tell those 4 or 5 different locations you explored, but it's not in context with everything else going on around it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would just note before you do your study that a 4% change difference between 11% and 15% doesn't sound very persuasive to me in terms of differential. But
Yeah, I
to
agree with that.
Mr. Singleton's observation, there might be some steeper slopes that we need to look at. But to Cannon's point, we don't have that information here.
No, I think it's sort of on one of the drawings and we could,
Yeah, I think LF1.
but the contour lines aren't numbered. I don't know if they're 2 foot or 5 foot or 1 foot or what.
So those
No,
are
no,
2
they're-
foot contours.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I see one. I see one with the study. It's just I don't see the more zoomed out version that Tom's talking about, just to be able to see the rest of the context in place, you know?
Yeah, I
So-
apologize about not having that drawing
Yeah, no
ready,
problem.
just because I
Okay,
didn't
this
want to
is the
show.
first shot.
Yeah, I don't want to
Anyway.
show materials that weren't submitted, so that will be part of the next submission.
Yeah, that's okay. And I just wanted to, going back to the cut and fill, I get that it's half cut, half fill kind of thing, but I was just trying to understand how you're dealing with that, because it looks like you have a retaining wall sort of to enter, and I was wondering what level that is.
So
Just to
this is,
understand.
yeah, this is the retaining wall you're referring to. We kept that under 4 feet as to avoid it having to be designed by a structural engineer.
Okay.
Can I say one thing real quickly? The town changed its code. Anything more than 2 feet's got to be designed by a structural engineer. So we no longer use 4 feet.
Beautiful.
Everything's 2 feet exposed height.
Okay.
You're making things easier by the day.
Yeah.
Well,
how tall is the inside rink?
So I do have architecturals with elevations.
All right.
And does it show the grade around it, or?
So I will show our grading plan after we go through this. So essentially, to the very peak, you're at 30 feet and 1 inch, and then it's 16 feet to the beginning of the eaves of the roof.
Okay. I suspect that I can't tell really from the numbering of the houses which ones are the ones that are going to see this.
Yeah.
So we did just a quick view shed analysis, kind of showing sections with the grading. So the 3 houses that we think would be most impacted are 29 Rose Home, 25, and 21.
Okay.
This is 29 located here, 25 and 21, and then above we did sections just to show. And obviously very, very rough cross sections. I went on, did a trip to the area and went on to and just used online to figure out, rough estimates of the heights, kind of using just construction standards, the heights of the residences. And then obviously I knew the height of our proposed indoor ring, and I put together these cross sections.
Yeah. So how are you? It's just sort of, you mentioned that you would consider putting vegetation along the fence line, or at maybe a closer line that would be easier to get the trees to grow faster, so your building isn't exposed as much as it is now. When I look at the pictures in the summer, I think it's going to be okay, except for one. In the wintertime, it'll be more of a problem. So you're prepared to do that, because I think you mentioned a 6-foot chain fence that'll keep the horses in probably, which is good. But I don't think that 6 feet is going to be adequate unless you're going to run strips of something in between the chain link fence so it becomes opaque, and then also have a taller fence. So that should be considered more. I know you're sort of saying, well, maybe we would do that. There is some vegetation, you can see that off this chart here. And so I guess it depends on the sight line of where the, the play areas are and everything else. I don't know that this is quite the right location. I could see that if it was moved another 40 feet, towards Trip, that might be better. And how many horses are there going to be? Is my next question.
I do not know offhand. Maybe another member of our team could answer that. I do not know offhand.
And Sabrina, having several horses is okay, or is it okay to have just one horse? How does this work with a R2A zoning area?
I don't know offhand how many they can have, but they are allowed to have horses. They have enough property for the horses. And again, I submitted it for Tom for verification of everything.
I believe it's 1 per half acre,
Yeah.
but we're not even close to that. It's a handful of horses. It's not a significant number.
Hi, this is Baldo, a family advisor. Currently, I think we have 4. And these horses are really just for the family. So it's not like I don't know what the plans are, but I wouldn't, this is not going to be a significant, amount of horses.
Okay. Yeah. So it would be 1 horse per half acre of open land, and you have plenty of open land.
Yeah, it's 93 acres, I guess.
Okay.
Is the
And what
application?
about how is manure taken care of? Is it just left on the ground, or?
No, there's actually a requirement by the county as to how to treat manure, and most towns adopt.
I can't hear you. Whitney, could you speak a little louder, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my microphone's not too good here. Let me switch. I have a remote.
Wow, that's better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I forgot I had a separate microphone. The Westchester County Code has its own provisions with regard to disposal and holding of manure, and most towns that I'm aware of that they simply reference in any horse approvals that you adhere to the county practices. So we could certainly provide you with what that is, but the manure needs to be stored in a particular fashion. It needs to be carted off within required intervals, and there can't be odor at the boundary lines or anything like that.
Okay, my concern is that and it sounds like it's not much of a concern yet anyway, is that if the manure isn't taken care of, then you have to consider that it percolates in a rain area, it percolates down, so you're getting more feces into the groundwater, and the people who live over on the other street have to rely on well water. So we don't want any a concern to be there that's going to potentially impact the water quality of the drinking water.
Mr. Brunel, and I think that's precisely why the county regulates it, is to make sure that for the water protection. But we can certainly provide you with some documentation on other approvals I've done for horse facilities. I believe that anytime that a ring is used, it has to be dragged that day. So the no manure sits inside. And that's of course not only a county requirement, but it would be certainly a condition of approval that we would be willing to accept.
Do these paddocks and areas, do they already exist, or is this an application that includes building out the paddocks as well?
They exist.
They exist, and yet we have these slopes in the paddocked area. I thought I heard something before that paddocks should be level, and yet it's a gentle slope, but yet the paddocks seem to be on the slope itself.
They are.
Okay.
It as you pointed out, they're just gentler slopes than the northern portion of the property, which has more significant slopes.
Okay.
So,
were you going to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to just get a sense, maybe Sabrina, you can help us. Just sort of understanding exactly what all is part of this application. So it's just a lot line adjustment.
It's
And
not.
that's-
No. Go
It
ahead,
is,
Sabrina.
it is a subdivision amendment because of the lot line adjustment. It is also a site plan approval because of the new barn and in its location involving with the lot line adjustment. There's a tree removal permit because in locating the barn where it is currently proposed, there will be tree removal. And it's questionable whether or not there's a wetland permit requirement and a stormwater erosion and sediment control permit requirement.
So I'd like to, I have a couple questions if I may.
Yeah, shoot.
First of all, with respect to the maintenance of this building, I don't see any provision for a roadway access for any equipment to get to this building. Sooner or later, you're gonna need to, do some work there. And I don't know, I don't know what the floor of this ring is made of, but I would assume that every once in a while you need to get some equipment in there to level it out, to grade it out, to refresh the turf or whatever you have in there. What are the provisions for equipment access?
So right now, as shown on this grading plan, we have walkways. So there will be doors on this side, and this side for the horses to come in and out of. Plenty wide for equipment to get through, and the walkways, 12 foot wide walkways around this portion of the building, and then relatively flat grading around the rest of the portion.
Okay, but how do you get to that? You said equipment. What equipment are we talking about? That's my question.
I guess whatever equipment would be necessary. It shouldn't have, obviously, I've been to the site many times. They wouldn't have any problem as we had equipment out there to do soils testing and whatnot. There was no problem getting up the 11% or so slope.
Well,
I
no,
think-
I
I
know
guess
you,
what he's
I'm
asking
sorry,
is
I'm
how
sorry.
do
Let me just finish this line of questioning. Clearly you can get equipment that will go anywhere. That's not the question. The question is, technically it'll go there, but the question is, will there need to be some sort of a roadway, whether it's a pervious roadway, gravel, something that is the pathway from wherever this equipment's going to be stored to the ring building itself.
I think I can answer that,
see no
Mr.
provision for that. The question is it necessary? Is it logical to ask for that?
Right. The outside of the initial construction of the site, the only equipment that would need to go there is a tractor, which would drag the ring and which would haul off any manure. So it would be just like a tractor that would go in this field and mow it. It would be the same exact type of vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
My next question is, I don't see anywhere in the drawings a provision for any sort of toilet facilities anywhere near this building. Maybe they exist in the barn, maybe they exist in one of these outbuildings, or is it true that the only toilets available are the ones that are actually in the home?
There are restroom facilities in the existing the barn, which is located. If I go to the blow up. So approximately this would be the area for the proposed horse ring, and then there are bathroom facilities located in this existing horse barn.
Oh, and I see the septic field. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And by the way, as long as you're on this plan.
Yep.
I think there was some concern earlier or some confusion generated on our part as to where the existing lot line is. You can see it very clearly on this plan where the existing lot line is. So essentially the 20-acre parcel that we're seeking to append another 9 acres to already wraps around that lot in that rectangular lot on Trip Street. It's already a horseshoe shaped lot. We would simply be increasing the amount of land that fronts on Trip Street with the Trip Street property. So I think there was some concern that we were creating a lot that was involving a lot of construction behind a different lot, which I don't really think is the case.
Yeah, I'm not quite clear on that. Again, the drawing was very confused. By the way,
right.
You put extra lines on here. There's no point putting on 100-foot wetland lines. It's irrelevant. So don't put them on. It just confuses it, makes it very difficult to read as an observation. But again, I couldn't figure that. And it was really just a question, an observation, because as I understood it, when you drew the line that was coming down, I wasn't quite sure where it came in. And again, that's something to take a look at. But, and I'm not, it seems to me, the parcel that's between Green on Trip Street and 106, the out parcel, or the parcel that's going to remain with 773, and that fronts on Trip Street, that's a different parcel from what you're proposing on 106. So 106 is going to wrap behind 773, as I see it, based on your current proposal. And that, that's something that we have to look at and you might have to adjust. Yeah, exactly. I'm not concerned about the out parcel exists. We can't do anything about it. That's fine. But we don't need to accentuate the difficulty by creating this lot that's behind a lot that is fronting on Trip.
Well,
I mean, you guys look at it. Just look at it and see what you. My solution, my suggestion is that you drop the line straight down the Trip, and do it that way.
I'll just point, and that's something we discussed, Chairman. It's certainly, I can understand the logic in wanting to have straight lot lines for side lot lines. But one of the things that you will notice is given the size of the Senegal parcel in the back there, the 773 parcel, it was deemed to, that it would be important to keep more than one point of frontage on two separate streets. And if you were to draw that line straight down, one of the things that you're not seeing here, where it says on the left side there, rear yard setback, 130 side and front yard setback,
right?
That is extremely heavily sloped, and it's got a lot of rock in it. And so that is not likely to serve as frontage for any future development of the 773 parcel. Not that there are any current plans to do so. I think the property owner's been pretty clear that they simply want to develop these lands, which actually their lands go for quite a ways to the north from here. They simply want to retain this for their own family compound. So they're simply making sure that there is, a reasonable access to Trip Street for future development of a couple of homes on the 773 parcel. If that's not something that you want, that's fine. We were just trying to maintain that optionality.
Right, understood. But you mentioned the property to the north. Could you move the slide over so that we see the lines on the northern side of the 106 trip?
So we are, the drawing is limited to those areas. You can kind of see portions of those lot lines, but we could blow that drawing up and show the remaining parcels.
We normally need to see the neighboring lots fully around the parcels.
Sure.
And I mean, very briefly, are we to understand that the parcels directly to the north of the lot line of 106 is also owned by the same applicant? Or controlled by the same applicant? I understand it might be a different LLC or different corporation.
We have, there are a number of different corporations. If you want to let me share the screen, I can give you an aerial photograph.
Thank you.
Bear with me. I'm only an attorney. Okay. Can you see my screen yet or no?
Not yet.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so again, not updated to show the building torn down. So the property starts down here, right? This is the 98 acres or 90 whatever acres. This is the existing barn. And this is the out parcel. This is where the gatehouse was. This is an existing ring. This is 106 Tripp Street, which we're seeking to, enlarge. And then, so the answer to your question is it's neither a yes nor a no. To the north, our client owns this, but does not own this. And then they own several parcels up here.
Okay.
Down to here. And I believe this is their main residence. I mean, I realize that we're in the situation we're in, but ironically, had they never torn down this 55,000 square foot house, we wouldn't even need to make an application for a lot line change because we could have used that as our principal residence and put the barn over here or anywhere else. The problem is they thought that, not that they thought that they were doing good. They were trying to take this off the table for any sort of commercial development or high intensity residential development by tearing it down at enormous expense. And now, what they're trying to do is just leave it in an open state for right now and just bring something into the, bring something in over here so that they can have indoor riding ring for their kids. This is not going to be a significant facility. And the irony is when you go down here and put something over here, the irony is I had this discussion with Sabrina early on. If we propose this to be a garage, we could put it right on the setback line. It wouldn't require your board's approval. I mean, we could build something. If you look up here, if you look up here, this is a garage that was done with no planning board approval. That's 30 times the size of our indoor riding ring. That was done with a building permit. It's infinite. This house here has got to be 60,000 square feet alone. I don't know how big this is. That's a garage. If we proposed a garage, we could do it with a building permit.
Right, but one thing that's very distinctive about that garage and that parcel is if you go back to it, you will not see residences up against it. And you'll see lots of open space.
Well,
in fact, to the east of it's open space.
Well, there's a residence right here.
That's part of the parcel.
Right. And yeah, I understand. But again, with our parcel, most of the adjoining properties are owned by our client as well.
I don't think it serves the conversation to talk about what you otherwise could do than what you are doing.
No,
it's better that we focus on what your request is.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Curley, and I apologize. It's just a little frustrating that but for the use itself being recreational as opposed to storage, that's what's triggering this application.
Well, I guess that's the law.
Yep.
So
agreed. I'll stop sharing and I'll stop talking.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, by the way, why don't we take comments from staff members? We have some extensive comments from Sabrina, from Bob, and from Dennis. And we should get those out in the open and move forward. So Sabrina, would you like to lead off?
Sure. Based on the application as it currently exists, the action is a type 2 action under the state environmental quality review law. There was, and I'm sure Dennis may speak about this a little bit more. There was a phase 1A and 1B archaeological report that was previously conducted on the property, on the 773 property. So this should be filled out correctly in the EAF and kind of reconciled in relation to the findings of that report and kind of what's going on now and what you're planning to do. You know, the everything in regards to setbacks is zoning compliant. Coverage calculations, you know, are conforming. So they're really, from a zoning compliance standpoint, the project is zoning compliant. So there's really no issue. The bigger issue I think that the board needs to grapple with is really the location and the view shed for the surrounding neighbors. And this is something that staff raised with the applicant during the pre-application meetings, and really trying to understand, is the analysis that the applicant provided the best analysis in relation to the impacts of the structure on the surrounding neighborhood? Because it is a very large structure, you know, that would be facing a neighborhood that has been a neighborhood for a very long time. And it's something that the board just needs to make sure they're comfortable with. That is really, you know, in the other point I wanted to make is they did provide some view shed analysis as requested in their application. I do think that there needs to be more information regarding the direct impacts. I think it's 25 Rose Home, on that property. Even the pictures that were, the photos that were taken were not taken directly onto that property. They were kind of from the corners. There really should be some more diligence put forth to really understand what the true picture of that is. You know, and you know, if there's a way to pull it away from that side of the property, maybe put it back towards the roadway, and swap that that paddock with the barn, you know, some other location that, you know, it really is pulling it away from those affected neighbors. But that's something for, you know, the board to really contemplate and work with the neighbor on. But other than that, everything from a planning perspective, it is zoning compliant.
I have
Okay.
a quick question. Do we have any information from the neighbors? Is there any?
There have been letters submitted to your board by one of the neighbors. I think she's written two, most recently one on the 5th of December, came to our office and was circulated to all of you. I would recommend that perhaps the board take a site visit and understand where, you know, maybe the applicant can flag the preferred location for the barn, and you can look at the site and really understand where best the structure should be.
Yep, agreed. Yep, I think that makes good sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Bob, you had some comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Basically, I looked at the stormwater comments, and I just want to note that the stormwater comments I reviewed were based on the proposed location, the preferred location, and which may change based on the final location as approved by the board. So basically, I'm going to try to keep this quick. I have a lot of comments. Stormwater, I broke them up ST1, ST2, ST3. Really technical comments with the type of runoff curve numbers that were used, the existing drainage area maps, and the types that I believe should be used for curve numbers, for the type of soil cover, which is a pasture, grassland, and a range. Those are ST1, 2, and 3. ST4, I would recommend that you change the location of the extreme precipitation. I think in your report you had 392 North Street. That should be changed to 106 Trip. Might change a little bit. ST5, basically the water quality volume should be based on the 2-year storm, the 1-year storm with 284 inches, as opposed to the 90th percentile contour, which is 1.5. ST6, 7, and 8, as regards the outlet control structure, drainage manholes, and stormwater chambers, you show all the details, but they're generic, and they must conform to the elevations that you arrive in the report. ST9, critical one, wherever you decide to put these stormwater infiltrators, always show the elevations relative to the bottom of the chambers and to the top of the groundwater to make certain it meets DEC requirements with a 3-foot separation. Also, too, I noticed on the architectural plans, I did not see anywhere where they show gutters, and I'd like to see really how that's going to be conveyed. You're looking at 16,600 square feet of roof area. That's going to create quite a bit of runoff, and it's got to be conveyed to the stormwater system, I would think, with gutters and leaders, but yet the plans did not show that. I would highly recommend that those plans show roof leaders and gutters. ST11 show details of the vegetated swales. ST12 is just slopes with standard North American green stabilization. ST13 standard, obviously you're disturbing more than 1 acre. You're going to need a full SWIP with post stormwater construction under New York State DEC guidelines. ST14, ST15 regards the maintenance bond and performance bond and stormwater agreement you're going to need for the stormwater facilities. Also, too, just for the board's information, I think everyone knows by now anyway, I did a quick review of the grading of all the actual 7 locations, and the gradients are 9 to 11. It doesn't even trip the wires for steep slopes in any way, shape, or form. So based on the locations of those 7 spots, it would not need a steep slopes permit at all. GC2, wall, since the wall's more than 2 feet, would need complete structural plans. And also, too, one thing that I would recommend you submit on the next go around is a subdivision plat for review by the board and Sabrina and I. GC4 general structural notes. GC5 cut and fill. Do you think, Mr. Bollinger, that this is going to be a cut and fill 0? No.
Yeah, we don't expect any import or export.
Okay. GC7, I would recommend you provide a engineer's construction cost estimate done by the engineer and a spreadsheet for my review, because you'll have to do that for the inspection fee and performance bond and maintenance bond. And GC8 is general notes, which regards completion of as-built certifications, type of fill being brought in, and just general notes regarding the SWIP and the NOT. And those are the comments I have right now.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bollinger, any questions, issues on any of Bob Cioli's contents there?
Not at all. As I expected, Bob was very thorough with his review, and we will address all comments.
Well, we're going to untie his other arm next time. So we can do it well.
And then, yes, I appreciate that.
One thought I have is that the face of the building that projects onto Rosenholm Road and the house in between, please don't paint it white. There should be a green color would be perhaps good, or a combination of green and brown, but I think there's an architectural thing that should be thought out as to, well, the face going towards the people, how do you break it up? Paint, I don't want to get too silly, but you could paint pine trees or something like that, on that face, or just a color, combination that isn't that bright. Where I live, in the morning when the sun rises in the east, and I come into to where I am right now, and I open the blind, I get the reflection from the White House across the street right into the room, and that's great, because I don't have to turn the light on. So yeah, it's really good. But I don't know that the people that are concerned about this would go with that kind of approach.
We'll definitely look into that.
Okay. Dennis, we have some comments from you. By the way, just a quick thing for board members. I think I received 2 original copies of the historical perspective study. So if someone's missing it, you really need to see the original, because it's all in color, et cetera. So whoever's might be missing it, let me know. And it's actually very fascinating reading, especially. Did you get it, Kenan?
I think it's me.
Okay, I'll get it down to Felicia, and we'll get it to you. It's actually very good, because it gives you a lot of background of the property. Some of us have been around since before Billy Rose on this thing, so we've seen about 4 or 5 different applications on it. So no need for us. Anyway, Dennis, you had some comments and observations.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, just as a broad sweep, I know that, we're kind of in the middle of an alternatives analysis, but I think some of what I'm asking for is definitely going to be a component of that analysis. And I'm not sure that it's been completed to date. So I think the most defined one to start with is the trees that, the 4 trees that they're proposing to remove. I guess from the aerial that Mr. Singleton had showed up, it almost like strikes you as the final 4 trees in that area. So that's why I had made comments, because 3 of them happen to be evergreens, that if somehow they could be used as part of the screening that Mr. Brownell was talking about, I think that should be part of, if it can be, the replanting plan. And obviously, as it relates to that plan, they fell a tree short based on the diameter measurements and also some of the other elements of 121.6 in terms of what we require for replacement of greater than 10 trees. As far as the wetlands that have been depicted, from walking the site with Mr. Bolander and from reviewing the GIS, the best determination I can make is that they used what is an existing or shown as an existing watercourse feature that cuts across the site. But as you could see from looking at the plans, there's a fair amount of piping, drainage piping, and that definitely comes across when you visit the site. There's really only a couple of open swales in the area. There's the pond that's depicted over by the house. And I think as you get to the border of the property over by some of those residents on Rosenholm, it looked like, potentially could be wetlands. So I'm just kind of requesting that we do a wetland delineation and depict those areas. And then, of course, they're associated 150-foot buffer. And if there are areas that, do not meet the criteria of wetlands, I would just ask that, that documentation be provided as well. But as I kept hearing the discussion of in the wetlands and out of the wetlands, I can't accurately make that determination now based on the information that's provided.
Well, that's a very good point, Dennis, because I can tell you that recalling from previous applications, there were determinations that there were wetlands out in the meadow. And it was, as it turned out, a very difficult constraint for some of the applications, and ultimately it proved to be a real problem for septic. So it's very important that we get an updated delineation of the wetlands. Again, I don't know if it's because of underground conveyances or otherwise, but it doesn't look like wetlands to the eye when you're on the top of the hill. But it was determined that there was a substantial meadow wetlands in this area in previous applications.
It's good to note. Yeah, an agricultural/pasture area delineation, they're not the easiest for obvious reasons.
Right.
As pointed out by the applicant, we just wanted to document that, yes, there were building permits issued for the demolition of those buildings. And if you did review the cultural resources report, those buildings were mentioned within that report. And now as far as outside of structural and going into the cultural resources, obviously, for at least the 773 side under another proposal, there was a phase 1A completed. And as I summarized, a phase 1A is more of that existing resources documentary public repository investigation. If, obviously the preparers of the report admitted to visiting the site. But that's just for context. You're not really doing anything subsurface. They seem to reference the 1995 phase 1B, which obviously did some subsurface analysis. I couldn't extract from the report exactly what those conclusions were. And obviously, I think, as indicated on some of the figures in the cultural resources report, there seem to be some other areas that have potential for cultural resources sensitivity that they suggested be evaluated. And I think some of those areas are in the vicinity of the existing property lines between 773 and 106 Trip. So I would just point out that, obviously a phase 1A that only focused on 773, that obviously represents the limitations of maybe where that study was completed, but obviously property lines are not going to demarcate where resources potentially could be. So that's why you see that acronym APE for area of potential effect. So that's really what you want to sort of look at. And also of note that, having completed that cultural resources inventory in 95 or 96, as you can see from the reference in the memo with respect to applicable archaeological standards, that, you know, those have been updated as by the 2005 reference. So really anything, you know, that's provided, that's updated should be, you know, done in accordance with the updated standard.
Okay,
That summarizes it. Thank you.
very good. Thank you, Dennis. Okay. I guess we should schedule a site visit. We have 4 of us here because I think that would be important for this application to give some guidance to the applicant and staff and everyone else. So do we have any preferred times? Anyone have anything in mind? We're heading into the holiday season, but it's also, well, up until tomorrow, snowless, so we can get around.
Yep.
Do we prefer a Saturday?
Yeah, weekend would be great.
Weekend is good. Okay. Dick and Tom, are you guys good for? 11, 18. Any of those okay? Are either of those okay? Neither?
18th of the month?
Yes. Would that be okay?
1 second.
Wait, we're in
Looks like-
December?
December, yes. Saturday, the December 18th.
Okay.
What
That
time are
work?
you? What time
Well,
are you?
We normally do it around, 9 o'clock or so in the morning.
Okay.
It might be a little colder than you want to do it at 10?
No.
Okay. Rest warmly.
Okay. Tom, is that okay for you?
Did we say 10?
9.
9. Okay, good.
Yeah. So 9 o'clock on December 18th. Does that give you guys enough time to mark things in the field?
Sure.
Rick?
Okay.
Yes, that should be plenty of time.
Okay.
So I just wanted to introduce Amanda Marcos. She is the owner of the property, and so 11/18. Hopefully, she can join you on that day. She would have the kids running around in the background, so we're trying to put them to bed and the dog. But just introducing Amanda to the board.
Hi.
Thank you
Hi.
for your consideration, and I look forward to meeting all of you on the 18th.
Okay. That would be December, not November, I think. Although you said November.
Oh, I'm sorry, 12/18. That's right. Yeah.
Baldo, can I just ask a question? Can you make sure that the entrance on Armonk Road is also open so that if the board members wish to drive up and through the property, they're able to do so?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And probably the best place to park would be at the barn, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So at the barn at 106?
Yeah, yes, that's exactly right, Chairman.
Okay.
And just for the record, so we have 3 horses, just to clarify, we currently have 3, one on the way. So just to.
Nice.
All right. I'm an engineer. I like facts.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you then. And in the meantime, let's. I think it'll be best if we get out there in the field, and that will help us on location issues immeasurably before you guys start wasting time, effort, and money with different sketches. So let's see if we can't come up with some guidance that will be of benefit to you. And that's pretty short term, so that's good. So it doesn't hold you up at all. And then we
Appreciate it.
Okay.
We concur entirely on that.
Absolutely.
If I may, if you're setting the schedule for the site walk for the 18th, if weather is conducive and you do the site walk, would you wish to discuss it on the 21st to give the applicant an indication of what you're looking for, and we can put it on that agenda?
That would be good.
Yes.
I think we could do that. Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
And so I just want to be clear, there's no expectation that the applicant is submitting any additional material, that this is a matter just to revisit the site walk discussion.
Right. And well, one of the issues that we have,
Evaluation from the site walk.
and one of the issues that we have on this, of course, is, and I think Jennifer will support me on this, we can't really go into a very detailed discussion on a site walk it's not considered to be a public meeting. So, you know, we'll make observations. So I think the discussion of what we see would be on the 21st.
Okay, great.
Understood.
And
And
everything
Yeah,
will
we
be,
have that correct. Thank you for mentioning that.
It only took a few years.
You know, I think it's also important because we do have some new members on the board that the site walk is not a time for you to be discussing the application, but more to obtain your own observations.
Right. I mean, obviously,
Right, questions can be asked of the applicants. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but questions can be asked of the applicants' consultants that are there, but it's not meant to be a deliberative discussion amongst the board members.
Right.
and
we'll have
I
the
missed the
24th.
point. Everything will be staked out, the new building, right?
Well, but there's so many options. Which one are they staking out?
The preferred option.
Okay, okay.
But bring your maps, and then we can look at the alternatives that the JMC has drawn out for us.
And if I can just ask a quick question, can I bring materials, you know, such as a steep slopes map that wasn't submitted with this submission? Can I bring that map with me or no?
You should not, no.
Okay.
No,
Unless you were going to submit it, no, you should not.
Okay.
If you want to,
We plan on submitting it, yeah, but I don't want to bring anything that.
yeah, I would not bring any new materials because then the staff in particular haven't had an opportunity to vet it for the board's consideration. So I would hold off on that. If you wish to submit something, I would say, you know, if you're submitting a steep slopes map by, you know, if you want to submit it to get it into the record in advance of the discussion on the 21st, you know, there's nothing preventing you from doing that other than we can't really process it because there's not
Sure.
enough time. Hold off on that.
Understood.
And the
Yeah,
last,
but Rich, you'll bring a
last
set
item-
of plans? to the
Yes.
site. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the last item for consideration by the applicant is very often, as we'll see, I think, there are interested neighbors. It's up to you if you want to permit neighbors to walk around with us. Your call. We can't require it. But I know, you know, this is not a public hearing yet. I know that there's one lengthy chat here that we've received, and we have received some correspondence. So there will obviously be interest. We leave that to you to notify neighbors if you wish that we will have a site walk. Unlike the ZBA, it's not something that you have to post where, you know, people have to be aware of it. So I leave that to you, your judgment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Well, we have one other thing that we often do. We're not required to accept comments from the public at this point, but often we do on a sort of like a semi or unofficial kind of approach. And I believe that at least one resident from Rosehelm is online, made a note. I'm not sure if he's still with us, but Mr. Chairman, what do you want to do about that?
Well, we have the chat, we have the information. I don't know if we really have to take the time on it now. If
All right.
Mr. I think it was Mr. Harold, 30 Rosehelm, if
Yep.
he wants to make a comment to Dick's point, we often accommodate people, but we have your chat. By the way, can we preserve that chat now as part of the record? I certainly don't know how to do it without electrocuting.
Typically we do not. Typically the chat function is not part of the public record. If a resident wants to submit a statement in writing as part of the public record, they should use the email address, the town email address to do so.
Okay. So Mr. Harold, if you're still here, okay, that's very good. Yep. That would be perfect then. And again, we've had other correspondence, so it's all part of the record and it's all part of our deliberation. Great. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you on
Thanks,
the.
guys.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Too late for that.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Okay, it's
Okay.
down to us.
Yep, Sean, we have minutes of January 21, which are somewhere on my floor. This was meeting of January 21. This was, I guess, one of our special meetings.
No, we can't hear you.
Pardon?
We can't hear you too well.
It's the January 21, I guess was one of our special meetings that we had in connection with the form-based code and the hamlet rezoning. I had a number of little shall I say, material or consequential substantive comments that I would just send off to Felicia. I don't know if anyone has anything that's substantive that we need to discuss and change or consider, or if you have other minor changes that you want to send to Felicia. I'm chiefly just wordsmithing. Anyone?
I don't have any.
Okay. Tom, Kanan, any issues at all?
Not this minute, but I can let you know if I do.
Well, you can send them into Felicia in the next day or so. Please don't take any longer than that because Felicia really needs to get these.
Liz, if I may, I would suggest that the board approve the minutes as amended, just to cover all the minor changes. Kanan, if you cannot get comments into Felicia tomorrow, the minutes will need to be amended and filed shortly thereafter, okay?
Understood, thank you.
Okay, great. Felicia's put together a draft of the planning board meeting schedule for next year.
Wait, Bob, can we make a motion to approve the minutes?
Oh,
as
I'm sorry.
amended?
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you very much. Sorry. Yes, do we have a motion then to approve the minutes of January 21 as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion's carried. The next item is Felicia's drawn up a draft of the meeting schedule for next year. So there are a little bit more gyrations here than normally. We always try to work around some of the holidays, et cetera. So the only real big change in the first half of the year is June 22nd, but that we always have every year. That's tax grievance day, so we get pushed over to a Wednesday after that Tuesday. The real changes are in September and October. Personally, we would normally consider meeting on September 6th, which is the day after Labor Day. It always seems to be a very tough opening to come back before school is even going and start off. So I think traditionally we've always pushed it off a week, and so the schedule here is to push it off to the 13th. It has the consequence of bunching September 28 and October 5 back to back. And again, you got some Wednesdays in here because of the Jewish holidays. We have to work around those. So that's the reason why you see a couple of Wednesdays in there and other odd days and a little bit of bunching. So any issues, questions, problems?
Now we'll wait until the last minute.
Great, thanks. After it's approved, of course. Okay, is there a motion then to adopt the planning board schedule for that Felicia's drafted here for next year?
Moved. So
Second?
moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The only other item I had, and Tom, I don't know if you're here if you're with us or not. I see you there. You were going to briefly just give us a little thought about
Mr. Chairman, I hate to do this, and I did circulate an email to everybody after speaking with the town administrator. This needs to be put on your agenda. I am happy to put it on December 21 so that we can give adequate notice to the public and I can get you adequate legal representation, even to discuss a memo to the town board.
Let me ask, what's the precedent for that?
It is just the order of meetings. I am not your legal counsel. I don't know the rules, but in order for a matter to be discussed, it has to be properly noticed on an agenda.
No, it depends on the matter. What?
Yeah,
What
I don't get that.
I don't get that.
Yeah.
Let me just. I'm
Well,
sorry, Bob.
I'd like to speak on this a second. I think I understand what you're saying, and I've talked to people about this, and I don't mean to be obnoxious or anything else, but the chair sets the agenda, and this is a discussion item that has nothing to do with an application. It has no impact. It's as if, and we should have this all the time. If someone has a question or an issue, it should be available and as something that we can talk about, whether it's any kind of observation. Things do come up. And again, I asked last time that we should have a new business item listed as the last item. And, you know, okay, fine, we'll put it under discussion. It's no big deal. I talked to Clinton about this before. I said, do you have a problem with this? He said, no. You know, I mean, he understood what we were talking about. So I don't get it. And there's certainly, I don't recommend, I mean, I just don't think we need, because we have the opinion from Clinton telling us that we have, you know, no jurisdiction on the matter. It's just a matter of discussion. I mean, we have absolutely no authority. And the only thing I think we're trying to do here is just to say, let's just bounce this up to the town board and let the town board do with it as it wishes or doesn't wish.
Mr. Kirkwood,
What-
listen.
What sorry, what are we talking about?
I just want to say I am caught in betwixt. I'm in betwixt of what I am being told to do, you know, based on conversations with administration and existing legal counsel that has recused themselves from this matter, and what you are saying. Okay,
Well,
so
I spoke to our special counsel on this. I spoke to Clinton on this. I said, this is what we're going to do. Is there an issue? Is there a problem? We understand from your memo. I mean, everyone understands what seeker is, that this thing's done. It's just a matter that there might be,
if
it
you
might be an
want,
opportunity.
what I'm going to say, but what I'm going to say to you, I'm just sharing with you what I have been told and advising you as I have been instructed to advise you. Okay, if you would like to go over that, that is, you know, I have no control over that. I am your planner. I am not your legal counsel.
Right.
And
Well,
so I'm not going to say anything further on this matter. I feel that I have expressed what I am supposed to express to you. And so please do not take offense to what I'm saying.
No, I understand. I appreciate it. No, look, I appreciate your position, and I don't like that you feel it's uncomfortable. I really don't. But I would just like to get finished with this one item. I think what we're doing here is basically what you have advised before and Clinton has advised, and that is we've made some observations. It's something that's within the responsibility of the planning board to make observations and push these up to the town board. I've talked to lawyers on that as well, and you know, it's not for us to do anything on it. We don't have any jurisdiction. And Kanan, this has to do with not even a neighboring town, but a town that approved a project. And Tom's observation is that it could have impacts to the western part of town. And the issue is, do we want to ask or what? I don't know what the issue really is, but you know, we don't have any jurisdiction on it. But as part of the regional responsibility, do we want to push this to the town board and say, this might be something that you might want to communicate to Mount Pleasant or the county board on? We've talked about it a little bit before in terms of prospectively, what do we do in the future in connection with the planning department and how to take care of this?
And I'm so sorry, I have missed the context. What property are we talking about?
Well, let's before we answer that question, Kanan, because there appears to be some extreme sensitivity to the planning board discussing this that I just don't quite understand. It would be helpful if we had some communication from the, I guess in this particular case, the town administrator, which doesn't necessarily mean it's coming from the town board, why this is something that she feels needs to be noticed, because in fact it doesn't. The public meeting law says that a public meeting, I'm going to read it to you right now. Public meeting law, state public meeting law says a notice need not be included. A notice need not include an agenda, nor does it have to be published as a legal notice. And this is a public meeting. The meeting itself has been noticed, but the agenda, it is not required that the agenda be noticed. What is required to be noticed are matters that have to do with land use approval, like applications, or our deliberations on legislation that's referred to us, because that's a public approval action taken by the town board that we're advising them on. But that's a public hearing within a public meeting. The subject we're having, the subject that we want to discuss is something that we actually have the authority to do, and I'll read the state law on that one, because it's frustrating to should have to do this. But here it is. The planning board shall have full power and authority to make investigations, maps, reports, and recommendations in connection therewith relating to the planning and development of the town as it seems desirable. So, key word here is planning board shall have full power and authority. And the next one is that public meetings don't have to have an agenda. And so I have no problem with putting it on an agenda. But what frustrates me is somebody trying to suggest that we don't know what we're doing here, trying to suggest that the public, that we're misbehaving in the way we're performing our duties. And I can't get a straight answer from anybody other than the special attorney who we had engaged to advise us, who said that it's okay to talk about this, unless I'm mistaken your conversation with Clinton, Bob. So I just part of it is we've been dealing with this and trying to talk about this for like months and months and months, and every time we try and do it, somebody steps up and says you can't do it. And I just like to get it over with, number one. Number two, there's a bigger question on my mind as to whether this planning board is going to exercise the authority that we are given to exercise here. And I think that once you have the authority to do something, you have the responsibility to do it. So I don't necessarily need to get into the chapter and verse of the analysis of the traffic study that has been done on this subject, other than to just suggest the reasons why I think that we ought to be concerned about the potential impacts. And then I think that what we were planning on doing was to refer it by a letter or a memo or whatever the appropriate communication is to the town board for their consideration, whether they want to pursue any further communication with the town of Mount Pleasant or not. That's up to them.
So Tom, can you just give us the thrust of it and your conclusion in terms of what you've gleaned and what we might want to do as a board?
Yeah, it's important to give just like 3 sentences of background so that Kanan and Dick understand, get a feeling for what it is, why there's some reason for concern. There is a proposal that has been approved by the town of Mount Pleasant. I don't know exactly. I think they must have final approval because it's under construction, for a large distribution center on Route 9A. And distribution center being sort of last mile delivery, and to give you a sense of really what the kind of business that is it's come out publicly lately that Amazon is going to be the tenant of that facility. It's reported to be about 150,000 square foot building. The traffic study says 380 delivery vans and 450 parking spaces. I'm a little bit confused about that because the public announcement that came out, which I think was a press release by the town of Mount Pleasant, at least their Industrial Development Corporation, suggested there were going to be 500 vans. So I'm a little confused about that. I don't know whether that's a cause for concern or not. But the reason that it might be something that the town might want to learn more about is that it's on 9A, and all of the deliveries that will be there's north, south, east, west, and north. The deliveries will be coming up 9A, and then either splitting off at Route 100 or continuing up 9A. They can't go up the Taconic because, as we know, and they can't go up the Sawmill because those are prohibited. Commercial vehicles are prohibited there. So the concern is that whatever component of delivery vans that are coming out during the peak hour of these 380, maybe potentially 500, I don't know, but 380 by the traffic study, maybe 500 is a future, another phase. I have no idea. Maybe that number's wrong. But that traffic is going to be coming right through Millwood, and Route 100 at the intersection of 134 turns from a 4-lane road to a 2-lane road, right at the Millwood Plaza Shopping Center. And the concern is that in the 2-way traffic, morning peak for them leaving and evening peak them coming back, might be cause for some traffic concern about traffic impacts to the Millwood hamlet itself. And what we are certain of is that there's just a lot we don't know. And I think that we had heard by public through a newspaper article that the town of Mount Pleasant themselves have decided that they want to engage in another traffic study to look at the broader impacts that may or may not occur as a result of this development. So the proposal here that I'm making is that we reach out to the town board and suggest to the town board that this is something that the town may want to know more about, and maybe the town board wants to be in touch with the town of Mount Pleasant and say, hey, please include our concerns about Route 100 northbound through the town of Newcastle in your next traffic study. And that's essentially it. And it's up to the town board to decide whether they want to. I think it should be up to them to decide whether they want to do that or not. But it's the kind of thing that I think that, again, reading chapter and verse of the state statute says that the planning board has the authority to do. And I think, because I live on the west side of town, I have a special interest in this, perhaps more so than anybody else, that it's necessary to ask the question.
And the other issue is that apparently the town of Mount Pleasant's looking at this intersection that was studied because they're hearing from residences, and they probably are going to cut off some of the residential roads for access and use by these commercial vehicles. So it might be an appropriate time for communication from one town to another, sharing information, sharing concerns, on a regional basis. The town of Mount Pleasant obviously will not have any obligation to do anything. It's theirs. It's within their bailiwick. They've complied with all the secret laws. It's been approved as we understand it. It's done. But this is just something, as long as they're looking at this issue of the intersections and traffic, perhaps it could be of some interest and some use if they expanded this study. So it's like nothing ventured, nothing gained. If the town board's not interested, that's fine too. I would just say that in days of yore, when the Millwood Task Force was a viable entity, this would have been something probably that they would have been all over the town board on, weeks ago, months ago, years ago, whatever. So anyway, that's the thought. So it's up to us if you want to draft a short little memo, a couple of sentences to the town board if they wish to take a look. If not, it's their call. It's not our call. We don't have authority or jurisdiction on it.
So I don't mean to stir the pot here, but my question is, just to understand better, what is the point that you're making here, Sabrina? Is that it's not in our purview?
Correct.
Okay.
And if you wanted a general discussion about it, it needed to be properly put on an agenda and noticed.
Okay.
And you don't have legal counsel here to representing you.
Understood.
Dick, your thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts. I mean, it's one way or the other.
Okay.
You know, it's if I understand Tom correctly, the document says 100 trucks will go north, and I guess the rest will spread out and head down towards the more populated areas of Westchester. Is that correct?
Well, the traffic study does say, identify traffic numbers to an extent of, I think, 500 feet north of the
Yeah.
site, which is what is required, right? And I think it was 91 vehicles, peak hour. The peak hour is peak hour. As you know, well, Dick, there's peak hour and then there's the double peak, right? Which is, okay, that's spread out over an hour. You know, what's the actual, you know, what happens in the 10-minute peak? So there, I mean, there's a lot of nuances here that, again, there may be nothing here. There may be nothing to worry about here. But I worry that we don't know that there's nothing to worry about.
Well, yeah.
So Tom, do you want to drop a brief memo? We can consider it then for the meeting of the 21st.
Yeah, that sounds good. I guess the only thought I have is that that's the peak hour for them. What's the peak hour, you know, for us with school buses and things like that? Are we going to have?
They've studied that supposedly. So I mean, you know,
They studied our school buses or theirs?
No, of course not. They have.
Yes,
they don't have any obligation to do so. I mean, you know,
so that's to me, that's where it is. It's if it's going to be a peak hour with and competing with the buses, then I think something has to be looked into more detail, and that's the way I would suggest we present it, to the our town board.
Well, okay, I kind of not sure. I understand what you're getting at, Dick. I guess I would say, in the absence of a fuller traffic study that actually looks at what's going on north, right? I would be, I think, remiss in just suggesting that I know the answer. Therefore, we don't need to look at it, especially in that it looks as though Mount Pleasant, if the press reports are correct, and we know they're often wrong, but it looks as though Mount Pleasant is going to engage their own traffic study for this facility. So I think just a polite request to them to consider our concerns. There's no harm in that.
Yeah. So again, if you could drop a memo for us, that we can consider on the 21st to send off to the town board, that would be great.
I will do that.
Okay, terrific.
That's fine.
And
who, Bob, a question.
Yeah.
Yes, a question. What shouldn't Jennifer answer on this too? Why?
Well,
no, she cannot. She's
conflicted out
from the application.
She's conflicted out.
Oh, that's right. Her
Yep.
firm is. She
Right.
is what her firm is.
Exactly.
All right.
That's why we had to go.
Yeah. Now I forgot that. Sorry.
So who does somebody take her place?
Yes.
The town retained Clinton to give us, first of all, to get the information from the town of Mount Pleasant, which took weeks, months. So he actually got the traffic report. He went through the traffic report. He gave us a quick summary of what was in the traffic report from his perspective. And then he gave us his legal opinion as to that what Mount Pleasant did was perfectly fine, compliant with seeker. And that, that was it. And basically, we don't have any, as we all know, we don't have jurisdiction over it. We don't have any kind of authority over it. And that was really the thrust of it. And that is, I don't think anyone disputes that. It's 100% correct.
So what we are hoping to achieve is asking our town board to basically reach out in good faith and say, this is a bit of a regional issue, we should talk about it together, or at least take our opinion, or
No,
give
just
us
reach out
or
and-
share?
I don't think we can get involved with asking for opinions or anything else. It's just as almost a courtesy to say, look, as you look at this, we have some concerns here. Perhaps you can provide us with some information so we better understand.
Why don't,
what-
why don't, maybe the next step is for me just to go ahead and draft
Yeah.
the letter, and then
Yeah.
we'll figure out what it should say in the end.
Exactly. Yep. Good.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty, great. Thank you. Take care now.